Hello, and welcome to the ONO podcast screening of There Will Be Blood, hosted at the King Alfred Phoenix Theatre. Just before we start, we want to show a little reel that Mr. Tuckman made, going through Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, and once that's finished, we're going to have a little discussion about the director, about the movie that you're going to see, and we'll see what else.
Thank you, guys.
What do good filmmakers have?
Just a persistence of vision. They all have kept their attitudes, you know?
You come with me back to Vegas. I'll loan you $50. I'll show you what you did wrong. Jack Warner, filmmaker.
Really?
Yeah, I make adult films, exotic pictures.
And I'll die. Now I'll die, and I'll tell you what, the biggest regret of my life, I let my love go.
I have a love in my life. It makes me stronger than anything you can imagine.
Don't tell me how to raise my family. I told you not to tell me how to raise my family.
Are you afraid that we might discover that our past has been reshaped, perverted, and perhaps what we think we know of this world is false information?
It's comforting to think the dead are watching over the living. I don't find that spooky at all.
She came along the alley and up the back stairs the way she always used to. Doc hadn't seen her in over a year. Nobody had. You're never gonna remember me.
I'm not gonna forget you. Just like you're not gonna forget me.
I need to find my daughter.
Well, then call us back when you have the time.
All right, so that is a very, very brief introduction to Paul Thomas Anderson's movies. Right, so I think where we agreed to start was our first experiences with this visionary director. How about we start with Otto? What was your first experience with Paul Thomas Anderson?
I mean, mine wasn't very exciting. I was at my friend's house. We just got like a DVD player. I must have been like 12 at the time. And they just put in Magnolia, which they were like really hyping up for me. So I sat through it. Very long movie, like 2.5 hours. And at the end, I was like, okay, how are they gonna wrap it up? How are they gonna make all these plot lines come together? And then obviously the iconic ending happened, and then I was just like, well, what was that? I could have been watching like Batman v Superman, or like real cinema. It was only a few years later that I watched A Serious Man, and the ending of that made me revisit Magnolia. Yeah.
I mean, mine was kind of it was kind of quick because one of my favorite podcasts was coming to the Prince Charles Cinema, great theater in central London. And they were screening Phantom Thread, which is an American film that takes place in London. And in the lead up to that, like 24 hours beforehand, I watched both There Will Be Blood and The Master, which are probably his two most intense and hard to watch movies. And then I went to see Phantom Thread, and I was like, I don't know how to process this for the next 2 weeks. And I found my way to do that, and then he's been like my number one ever since. Like, I love this guy. So
mine really wasn't that intense, I'll be honest. For me, I was really sick. I took a week off school, which is something that I didn't really do very often because I don't really get that sick often. But I had a really bad flu, and I felt like watching a miserable movie, which just really isn't the right thing to do if you're sick. Just putting it out there, don't watch a miserable movie, and especially don't watch Magnolia, which was my final verdict. But it is like a behemoth of a movie. It's like 3 hours, is it not? Like
close. I mean,
just
it comes in
and the opening scene of that movie is just so confusing. And I first watched Magnolia when I was I don't know if I can say this, but I was only 13 when I watched Magnolia, and I didn't really understand what was going on. But when I got to the end, I was like, that has to be one of the most miserable movies I've ever seen. It's not really helping my flu. But it is like a great movie, and I'm really excited to see the other work of this visionary director. And the thing about Paul Thomas Anderson for me is he blends so many different genres, like just because one film is a drama doesn't mean that his next film is going to be a drama. And I think that's just so interesting, and not many famous directors have that sort of gift that he has.
Yeah. I mean, it's important like with that to talk about like where he kind of grew up and where he came from. Like, this was a guy, he's from a place outside of LA, and he grew up just at like an amazing time for cinema. Like, he was watching Martin Scorsese movies, he was watching Spielberg movies. Like, this was the kind of thing people were interested in at the time. And you can kind of tell when you're watching his films, like, he's dealing in like some very like illicit topics. Like, he's made movies about like the porn industry, he's made movies about like incredibly depressed people, but there's always this kind of sense of like cinematic wonder that you get because he was watching like a time when blockbusters were at their very best, right? Like, and he has a talent for making very exciting movies different every time. And that's why there's like an event every time there's a new Paul Thomas Anderson movie, because it's going to be completely different from anything he's done before. So it's just very exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I always find it very interesting how much inspiration he got from Kubrick growing up. Like, his filmography was always like compared to Kubrick's, going from like kind of lighter, more fun films to very later on very like dark and intense ones. I've always found that a very interesting parallel.
Yeah, and like when you see his movies, he's one of the few filmmakers where you can really see the influence. Like, I remember when I watched Hard Eight, which is his first movie. I mean, if you hadn't told me that it was directed by him, I would have said it was directed by Scorsese, or it was directed by like one of those like golden era directors. Yeah. But I mean, I think that's just what makes him so special. I mean, just carrying on those influences.
And like you touched on something important too, which is that at the early point of his career, you get Hard Eight, you get Boogie Nights, and then you get Magnolia. And all three of those movies, you can feel like the influences on their sleeves a lot in terms of like he's pulling ensemble casts from Altman, he's getting the kind of bravura camera movement from Scorsese, and like there's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. And as he kind of matures, because he makes those movies very young. I mean, Boogie Nights he made when he was like 28, which is nuts considering like how good that movie is.
And the content of that movie.
Yeah. But he did kind of mature, and now he's making, I mean, he went through a period where he's like, we're going to show one of the films from that period tonight, but he went through a period where he's like, I want to make the next great American novel, but as a movie. Like, There Will Be Blood I would put against like any great American novel like that.
Yeah, like when I watched One Battle, I walked out the cinema saying, "There's no way that like a 50-year-old guy made this. Like, this is like so like 20 to 30-year-old, you know, like full of youth, full of energy, and it's just amazing how it's like almost like he's never aged. Like, his writing style hasn't aged. He hasn't like." He's still got that youthful energy, and that I really respect.
I kind of have to disagree with you there.
Really?
Watching one battle after another, like, I feel like what makes that film so compelling is just Leonardo DiCaprio's character, like how well he's able to encapsulate that time of life, and just like seeing like political movements throughout the years. I don't think he could have made that when he was younger. It feels, yeah.
But I mean, when we're considering some of like the language used in that movie, it's very Gen Z colloquial sort of slang.
He's still very sharp, and he's always been on the times. Like, even when he's making a movie about the past, even something like Boogie Nights is about like the 70s. This movie goes all the way back to the start of the 20th century. I mean, he's always kind of had this writing style that feels very contemporary and very even ahead of its time. Like, I think something crazy about him as a filmmaker is that he is part of the generation of your Quentin Tarantinos, your Wes Andersons, your like Richard Linklaters, David Fincher. Like, these are the most famous directors working right now. And Paul Thomas Anderson has never quite gotten to that level of popularity, partially because he just makes different movies all the time. Whereas Quentin Tarantino, you watch one of his movies, you're like, okay, I understand this. But with PTA, it kind of constantly feels like he's been one step ahead a little bit. And then now we finally caught up to him, where it's like, I think part of the reason we're doing this is because in a few days, One Battle After Another is going to win a lot at this Oscars. Like, it's probably going to win him director, picture, screenplay.
Best picture, yeah.
I mean, all for the first time. I mean, he's never won that before. Like, he's been nominated a bunch, never won. It feels like when Scorsese won for The Departed, where everybody was like, this is this great filmmaker's time to finally be awarded after decades of great work. So, yeah.
Let's talk a bit about the film that let's talk a bit about There Will Be Blood. Released in 2007. Let's talk a little about what the landscape was like in 2007.
Can I give you some films? 2007 is notoriously one of the best years for movies, just to name some, right? So you have There Will Be Blood. You have No Country for Old Men, Michael Clayton, Zodiac, Superbad, Ratatouille, Hot Fuzz, Juno, and the Bee Movie.
And Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Guys, all of those movies are like great. Great.
Yeah, that's a wildly stacked Oscars. I mean, I assume it was 2 years before I was born, but
just to talk about that for a bit, you would think he would win for this movie because this movie is massively critically acclaimed when it's released. It was, I don't want to say a big deal, but for film fans who are following Paul Thomas Anderson and were like aware of what was happening movie-wise, this was like a pretty big event because everybody knew this movie was great. And the problem is that the Coen brothers also made a great movie, and they were like, well, the Coens have been around longer. They've made arguably not more great films, but more movies, and have had a bigger catalog. So it's time to award them for this great film. But I don't know. I think if you could go back and do it again, No Country might have to take a back seat. Like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
great movie.
I'm gonna have to agree with that. But like, of course, Daniel Day-Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong, did win Best Actor.
He did,
which is deserved, as you're about to see.
Can we talk about him? Because he is. I mean, he's like the bread and butter of this movie. Like, everything in this movie is resting fully on him. Like, do you want to talk about him as an actor? Like his like professional strategy for getting into a character like this is pretty famous at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously very method acting. He's what were you saying earlier, that he would only eat steak and drink vodka every night, like when preparing for the role, or something wild like that?
I mean, I think he said in his acceptance speech for Lincoln that his wife had to live with Abraham Lincoln for a year. So that would be pretty difficult, and I'm assuming he did the same for this, which is arguably worse. But I mean, he's just like sensational in this movie. Like,
he's amazing at playing an absolutely horrible person, but also one of them, like an absolute like tour de force from Paul Dano. He's recently been in the news because of some comments.
Took some shots, man. He took some shots.
From a Quentin Tarantino, who called him like weak sauce or something ridiculous like that. You know, just watch this movie, right? And if you call him weak sauce, I mean, you know, everything is like opinionated in this world, but respectfully, you're wrong, right? This is like an unreal performance. Like this is one of his first performances, isn't it? Because like his first was Little Miss Sunshine, was it not? And then, like, you know, only a few years later, he's playing Eli Sunday, is he not?
It's wild that he wasn't even nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
It's ridiculous.
And like, the part was supposed to go to someone else, and then that someone else pulled out, and then Paul Thomas Anderson went to Paul Dano, who's supposed to play the other brother in the movie. You'll see, very, very small part. And he was basically like, we have 2 weeks to shoot this. Can you learn these lines and play this part? And Paul Dano was like, sure. And then we have one of the best supporting performances like of the century. And I don't know. I think that's like another thing about Paul Thomas Anderson is if you look at the performances in his movies, even his first film, which is like John C. Reilly in it, Gwyneth Paltrow, like Philip Baker Hall. Like, the reason great actors sign up to do this is because he just knows how to get the best out of them. Like, he put any actor in his movie, it doesn't matter their track record. You know, John C. Reilly is a comedian, like he's a comic actor, and he's like giving great dramatic work in his movies. Like,
I mean,
Magnolia.
think about Sandler in Punch Drunk Love.
Oh my God.
I mean, of course, lots of people now know him for like, you know, Gems, because, you know, in Gems, like that was like his first ever drama role, but it's really not, because if you turn back the clock, it's only like, I don't know, like 7 years earlier, he's in a sort of like a dramedy romance movie, is he not?
I mean, it's wild that nobody did anything with him in that period. It's kind of, it's...
No.
I mean, it's difficult because it's like oftentimes, but the thing about, I mean, I'll make a point like this, like Paul Thomas Anderson's movies are very rounded in terms of their genre and like balancing comedy with drama. And I think something that's special about this movie, and that it took me a couple viewings to notice it, is that this movie is very funny to me. I think this movie's kind of hilarious. And the first time you watch it, you're going to be like, man, this is an intense, brutal, like brooding film about like the history of America. And you go back and you're like, this is really, really funny. Like, there are some line readings from Daniel Day-Lewis like that are just like great.
I first saw this film at the Prince Charles. I was very sort of hooked on it. It was in like 35mm film print, and like around me there were like these people who clearly knew quite a lot about movies, and they clearly were quite obsessed with this film. I mean, just couldn't stop talking about it, and throughout the movie they just kept on laughing at all these scenes, and I was like, what are you laughing for? Like, literally, this is the climax of the movie and you're like giggling. I just don't get it. But like this is my fourth or fifth time watching this movie, and I 100% have to agree with you. Like there are certain moments where like it's so awkwardly intense that you just have to laugh. Like, you know, it's just like a physical reaction to Daniel Day-Lewis's like unreal acting.
I mean, what can we talk about? I mean, do we want to do so? This other things this movie was nominated for, and we're going to get to your special section in a second, right? So it wins cinematography, great win. It's obviously nominated for all the major Oscars, but a major one that it doesn't win, and I don't know if it was nominated for it, but is the score for this movie. Noah, you have Music Corner. You have 3 minutes to talk about the score for this movie so that we don't go fully off track.
All right, let's go. Okay, film was scored by a guy called Johnny Greenwood. He's in a band called Radiohead. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're quite big. He was the guitarist, but he also experimented with lots of different sort of out there niche instruments. Like there's one called the Ond Martineau, which is like a 20th century sort of mix between like a theremin and a piano. But anyway, the whole thing is he was very experimental, and he shifted to a more classical, neoclassical 20th century perspective once Radiohead took a big break. And in that break, he made the score for There Will Be Blood. And his main inspiration for it was a very, very famous composer called Krzysztof Penderecki, who only died a few years ago. But the whole thing about sort of his style is he made his scores in something called graphic notation, which is an alternate form of scoring music, which is where you use like symbols instead of notes, and it's up to the instrumentalist interpretation what they want to play, and that for most people that creates a horrible sound. But when you're creating a film about a horrible oil rig owner, it really does work. And he only has one published work. I have no idea why he called it this. It's called Popcorn Super Het Receiver. No idea what that means. But the score for There Will Be Blood is absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, if I do want to tell you guys something, I do want you just to listen out to the score, especially in the opening scene where there is just like arid plains with nothing but a deep well, and how Johnny Greenwood manages to capture these empty spaces. I mean, the opening track is called Opening Spaces. I know 3 minutes is up now. You guys can talk. Sorry,
I wasn't gonna interrupt your flow, man. I mean, this is the opening scene to that movie. The music in it, it's like it's a horror movie.
No,
like
it's
it's like legitimately scary, and like that's the thing about this movie is that there are moments in it that are really scary in their own way because you're just very invested. In terms of like his collaborations, I mean, Otto, like he made this movie. This was his first collaboration with Greenwood, and they haven't split since, which is interesting. Like even for the smallest projects, he did like a documentary with him. He's scored like some of his short films. Like I don't know. I mean, years on, he's still working with Johnny Greenwood. Like I don't know. Do you think the scores kind of like evolve, or like what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, what an amazing duo to have. Like that, I can imagine them having some very very good conversations with each other about the but in this film particularly, I feel like it just does such a good job of making us kind of fearful of like any success Plainview has. Like we see him like find some silver in the opening credits, and like based on the score, you'd think like the main villain just like killed the protagonist or something. It does a really good job of just filling you with dread.
Yeah. And especially there's another moment in the movie where Daniel meets a very special person. I'm not going to spoil anything, but he meets someone very important, someone quite close to him, but the score is scored what's called microtonally, which is where which is where instead of having like instead of sticking to the scale, you go in between, and it makes it sound literally like the scariest thing you've ever heard, and you know, it's just one of the most groundbreaking scores. I think it's not even nominated.
Yeah, and he's probably not going to win this year.
I mean, it was disqualified, right? Because it was using parts of previously existing music.
I mean, there's a song in it that he recorded outside of the soundtrack that I used in my GCSE short film because I love this movie. But I mean, in terms of what, like, we don't want to talk too much through plot specifics because a lot of you haven't seen it, and it's going to be, we don't want to spoil anything about it because it's really a go in knowing as little as possible kind of situation. But just to talk through a little bit about where this movie kind of sits in his wider career, the themes that it examines, why it's kind of important. I mean, this is like, I don't know how much he thinks about the numbers of his movies, but this is number 5, and One Battle is number 10. And for some reason, I feel that that's kind of not significant literally, but it shows that he's at a place in his career, like a certain place in his career. And I feel like Punch Drunk Love is in many ways the transition point between his early stage and where we're at, I guess, now with his middle stage, where he's like really kind of becoming the best like possible filmmaker it can be. Like that's the thing about this movie to me, is like it's a filmmaker at like the total apex of what he can be. So yeah.
Just before we take questions, I just wanted to discuss one last thing, which is what makes this movie so good. Why did we choose this movie? We literally have, I mean, I don't know how many movies there are in the world, but we had so many to choose from. Why did we choose this one? Let's start with you, Otto. Why?
Well, I mean, we were just thinking about like which films would look good on the giant screen. You know, like maybe something like Ron or Mad Max Fury Road was.
I suggested Superbad, but that got shot down fairly quickly.
No. I mean, these guys definitely want something from Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he's a very important director to all three of us. And this is seen by many critics as like his magnum opus. It's a very important film for everyone to watch.
And I mean, that's the funny thing is like, I mean, before we came here, we had 2 periods of film to go through. And the students started watching One Battle because they wanted to basically get a little bit into PTA before we came here. And like, he's still holding this kind of relevance. And I feel like this movie even, I mean, we're coming at the, I think, 10th anniversary of it is next year. And 10 years on, this movie is cited in best of all time lists, best of the century lists. Like, to me, this movie is the best film of the century so far. I think I can make a claim like that. And to me, it really is special because it represents the 21st century. Like, this movie goes back to the 20th century and it explains, here's why we're at the world we're in today. Here are the people who have built the society that we live in today. And here's like the root of the evil. Like, this is the central problem. And like, I don't know, I find it fascinating every time to go back to it.
Yeah. And for me, when it comes to the different departments of what makes a film, it just is a star in every single department. You've got the direction of Paul Thomas Anderson, the writing of Paul Thomas Anderson. You've got on the camera, you got Roger Avery.
I think you mean Robert Elswit.
Okay,
but that's fine. Sorry.
Fair enough. You got Johnny Greenwood on the score. Got Daniel Day-Lewis and Paul Dano. What more can you want? And I think, you know, in art, you know, it's quite amazing when you see great artists collaborate to make like a passion project. And I think this is one of the main examples of an ensemble cast, an ensemble team, and an ensemble auteur director all coming together to make in what we all think is a masterpiece. And yeah,
I think we've.
I think that's it.
Any questions?
Any questions?
I mean, that's the thing with like great filmmakers, is that on one hand you're like, yes, let them make all these original stories, let them write their own movies, let them make it, but I would love to see like a Paul Thomas Anderson horror movie. Like imagine him getting the money to make like Halloween 7.
I mean, I don't know. I've always really wanted to see like a Paul Thomas Anderson war movie. I feel like that'd be a great direction for him.
For me, Cormac McCarthy. I don't know. Like, of course, there is already No Country for Old Men. Could go the full
Blood Meridian.
Blood Meridian.
Could you just do The Road over again?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it needs to be redone at some point. Any other questions?
How do you do it? I mean, I would probably ask him like, I'd probably ask him like, why do you think you're still a filmmaker? Like, what is it about the stories that you tell that you want to tell them? Like, what makes them special to you?
I'm going to be honest. Mine's like, can I have your autograph? And then I'd probably say, I probably ask like. Then I'd probably say, can I be on set for your next movie?
Yeah.
And then I'd probably say, like, how do you do it? Like, but yeah, like I'd love to hear him speak about how he approaches his writing, because you know, not only does he direct his films, he also writes them, and I think that combination of directing and writing, it's very, very, very hard to do, especially when you're making a 2 hour and 30-minute movie. And I had no idea how you can just sit at a desk and just type up that. And that's what I would ask him.
I mean, Otto, just before you answer, I just say really quickly. Also, I don't know, he seems to kind of have like an arm in every element of the film production too. Like he shot. Like there's no credited cinematographer on Phantom Thread, which essentially means he shot it himself, and he's also co-credited on both Licorice Pizza and One Battle for shooting those movies. So he's just kind of like, that's another thing I love about him, is just like he's someone who like sits at a table, comes up with the idea, writes the whole thing, puts the whole thing in motion, gets all the actors, directs it himself, sits in the editing room, edits it with the people. And he's like carrying it through from idea to like final product. And it's like, we can argue auteur theory, but like this guy's one of them. So,
no, I mean, that's why it's ridiculous when you see online or stuff, like people saying that he's not an auteur because like his films don't have anything to do with each other or something, or that there's not like a recognizable style. That's always seemed very silly. If I could ask him any question, it would just to please just keep on making movies. I mean, he's getting up there in age.
That's not a question.
I feel like a lot. Well, no, I'm begging him.
Will you
Mr.
please
Anderson.
keep making movies? Yeah.
I mean, I feel like some people felt like a certain sense of finality with one battle after another. I hope we get more from him.
I mean, if we're being realistic, he's probably going to tone it back. Like, One Battle's probably the biggest movie he's made box office-wise in terms of, like, its production value. He's probably going to make another Licorice Pizza or another kind of more mellow, more personal film, even though I think all of his movies are personal. So, yeah.
Any others? All right. Thank you, guys. Pizza is in the main part. We know that that's why you came here. But anyway, thank you very much.
The movie starts at 6.
Yes.
Be there.
Awesome. Thank you.